Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the course of English for Academic Communication with me, Maria Dewi Rosari from Jakarta International University. This lecture is lecture 2 or in week 2 or in chapter 2. And we are having a new topic to discuss today, which is about engaging in interpersonal communication. So in the previous lecture, we focused on the key terms and key concepts as the kind of introduction before we enter the real material of English for academic communication. And in this lecture 2, we start with how to carry out interpersonal communication with several learning objectives that you can see in the following slide. Well, without further ado, let's start this lecture 2. So for every lecture that I have in my course, I always provide my students with learning objectives. I hope that by presenting the learning objectives in the beginning of the lecture, my students know what to expect, what to learn, and how to make most of them. And as you can see here on the right side of the slide, there are 5 main sections that we are going to cover today, and 2 of them have subsections. The first one, we will start this lecture 2 with unit introduction. So I will introduce you first with the overall picture of this lecture 2. What are we going to learn? What are we going to discuss? And what you need to do later. And then number 2, in section 2, we are going to explore the challenges and any hidden assumptions that may occur in interpersonal communication, because that's our topic today. And then in the third section, it's about mastering the mechanics of language. So almost in every meeting, there will be this section, which is mechanics of language. So shortly speaking, it's like the expressions or the statements or the sentences that you can use when you are taking a part in a certain academic communication setting. And in the section 3, there are two main things that we are going to cover. The first one is entering and maintaining conversations. So how are we supposed to enter a new conversation and how to maintain it? So it's not only to start a conversation, but how we can or what can we do so that we can maintain the conversation, or how to make sure that the conversation flows well, even though the conversation that we have is with someone new. And it deals with interpersonal communication skill that we are going to learn today. And then the next one is exiting conversations. Equally important, entering a conversation is as important as exiting conversation. So when we decide to start a conversation, especially with someone new that we meet, for example, in academic forum, we are supposed to start a conversation politely and well, but it's not enough. When we think we need to stop the conversation because we need to leave our interlocutors, or we need to move to something else, or a session is about to start, we need to end the conversation, right? And there will be some important skills and strategies that we all need to know, so that when we exit a conversation, we can do it well and politely and without offending our speaking partner. And then the next one is about application activities. So I know maybe most of you learned this course by yourself, but I will provide you with some ideas about how to apply the skills, the expressions, and the vocabularies that we are learning in this lesson. And the last one is strategies for success. And this section almost occurs in every lecture, because almost every lecture, not every lecture, covers different communication setting, and there must be different strategies for success. There are 3 types of strategies that we are going to cover today. The first one is a few points on making new acquaintances. So with new people, what to do, how to do it. And then number 2 is strategies for maintaining conversations. And the last one is practicing active listening skills. Well, I know that the title of this course is Academic Communication. Communication is about talking, but it's inevitable to master listening skills too, because without having the ability to listen to others, we won't be able to conduct a good academic communication. So that's the overall picture about what we are going to cover today. And let's start with the first section, which is about unit introduction. Let's find out what this lecture 2 or unit 2 is about. All right, so as mentioned in this first point, the content of this lecture 2 is intended to help you meet identified challenges with specific strategies as you participate in increasingly larger and more complex conversational groups. So if you read the syllabus, I designed the syllabus in a way that we can gradually move from participating in a small group and then bigger and then bigger and then bigger setting. And we will start it with interpersonal communication setting first. And in the next lecture, you will learn about how to take a part in a small group setting. We will start a small group setting, and then as the lecture goes on, you will need to try how to participate in a bigger setting. This lecture 2 focuses on interpersonal communication and is designed to help you enter, maintain, and exit conversations with ease and confidence. So some people may think that it is uncomfortable to start a conversation, especially with new acquaintances, and the not comfortable feeling also happens when they need to exit the conversation. So we will find out how can we do it with confidence. And then let me ask you this thing. What kind of issues of entering, maintaining, and exiting conversation have you ever experienced? Or if you think you don't have issues in all those 3 things, that's okay too. For example, when entering a conversations, you feel uncomfortable to interrupt the conversation happening between 2 people, for example. Or when exiting, you feel like it is impolite to leave your speaking partner when you think that your speaking partner still wants to, continue the conversation like that. So what kind of issues have you ever experienced? If you need time to recall your experience, you may pause this video and stay on slide 3 on your PPT file. And you may take your time to recall your memories about those things. All right, so in this lecture, I also provide you with a diagnostic section that includes questions that will help you explore potential communication challenges during initial interpersonal encounters. So as you know, diagnostic questions is to diagnose problems, diagnose issues, just like when we visit a doctor, we are having diagnostic tests to find out which a part of our body is having an issue. So I also provide that kind of thing here in my course so that I can help you to identify the challenges or issues or problems that you may have when you are in interpersonal communication. And then this unit or this lecture concludes with strategies for making new acquaintances, maintaining conversations, and practicing active listening skills that aim to facilitate your continuing development and success. So it's not only about diagnosing your problems and then the mechanics of language, but it's also about the strategies to succeed. Was that our involvement in this academic communication setting? The mechanics of language that you will see in this lecture needed to master interpersonal communication, such as face-to-face meetings and small talks. They are introduced before 4 classroom-tested application activities designed to help you put the mechanics into practice. So that's about the unit introduction. That's what you are going to learn in this lecture 2. And now let's start with the second section, which is about facing challenges and exploring hidden assumptions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we are in the second section of this lecture about facing challenges and exploring hidden assumptions. So in this section, before we enter the material of today's lecture, I'd like to invite you to analyze, to diagnose your own challenges and to explore any hidden assumptions regarding taking a part in interpersonal communication. So there will be several questions for you to answer, and those questions are aimed to help you analyze those things. All right, so it's actually not necessary for you to write down your answers, although it's recommended. But if you think you can manage doing this diagnostic test by, remembering the answers in your head, in your mind, that's okay too. So let's see the instruction for this part. This one, explore these questions on your own if you're using this book for self-study. In a classroom, share your thoughts about these questions with a speaking partner and be prepared to share your discussion with the class. So this lecture is actually able to be used by 2 types of parties. It can be a student for self-study and also for instructor teaching in a classroom. So please do whichever applicable and necessary for you. Those questions are, the first one, how would you address your professor? Or how do you usually call your professor? Is it doctor, professor, or by his or her first name? And how do you decide which form to use? Do you decide it based on the cultural factors? Or if yes, so what cultural factors might influence your choices or preferences in how you address others? So this question is particularly about addressing our professor. Number 2, if you were sitting down and someone introduced you to a friend of his or hers, under what circumstances would you stand up? You may add further elaboration with why do you think you need to stand up? Is there any cultural factor behind it? And then number 3, what gestures or expressions are used in your country when one meets someone new? Different country may use different body gestures, different non-verbal things. So which one is yours? Which one is the one that usually used by you? Number 4, what is small talk? Is small talk really small, as the name suggests? Or do you think there is a different meaning behind small talk term? And the last one is, when you talk to a person you have never met before, how do you know what topics are appropriate for you to discuss? In your culture, what kinds of things would you talk about to get acquainted with someone? Are there any topics that you would consider inappropriate to discuss with a new acquaintance? And are there any questions that you would not ask? So it's about conversation topic, the way you choose it and why you choose it and why you not choose it when you need to have a conversation with someone new. And what are your considerations that you usually use to decide which topic is appropriate and not? So if you think you need some time to answer these questions, please pause this video for a while giving yourself a time to cover all those 5 questions. Whenever you're ready, please move to the next slide, we are going to learn the mechanics of language that we can use in interpersonal communication. So the mechanics of the language will introduce you with expressions in different settings and different uses and different purposes as well, right? So this section first covers mechanics and strategies for speaking on various situations. So it's not only one situations, but the various ones, which even advanced learners can find challenging because of the lack of paralinguistic cues in such conversation. So if you think that you are not yet an advanced learner of English or advanced English speaker, you don't need to worry, and you cannot, do not believe that the problems in in a communication is only for your level, your maybe intermediate or beginner level of English. But even the advanced learner can still find it difficult and challenging to take a part in the various academic situations, right? Because the vibe is different, the situation is different, the expressions that should be used are also different, and also the strategies too are different, right? So as mentioned here, even advanced learners can find it challenging. It's not only for beginner and intermediate level of English learners. And the speaking situations that I mentioned covered in this section are first, entering conversation, maintaining conversations for number 2, and exiting conversations. It's like the start it, maintain it, and end it. So there are three steps, right? There are 3 phases of a conversation. We start or we enter, and then we maintain or keep the flow, and finally we need to end it. And for every phase of it, we have different mechanics of language. We have different strategies. We have different ways to carry it out. And now let's start from entering and maintaining conversation. How are we supposed to enter or start a conversation, and in what way can we maintain a conversation so that the conversation is enjoyable for both parties? Okay, for entering and maintaining conversations, let me start with this question about small talk. This question is actually in the previous section about the diagnostic question, right? Now let me ask you once again, what is small talk? Is it really small? Small in this case means something small, something not important, something artificial. Is this kind of talk really carrying that meaning? Do you agree that small talk can bring us big advantage, or the opposite? Although it is named small talk, but it's actually not small. It has a bigger advantage for us. Which one do you think? Well, small talk may not be so small after all. It's just the name that's small. If you feel some trepidation about what to say or how to initiate a conversation, you're not alone. Even for advanced learners, initiating a conversation can still be a very big challenge. Small talk is in fact the social lubricant that facilitates connections and interactions with those whom you meet in the academic community. Consider the times when you happen to run into people on the street or in the hallway, at the cafeteria, at departmental, social, or academic gatherings, or at conferences, or you attend an academic conference quite earlier. Let's say the event starts at 8 a.m. and you already arrive at the venue 7:30. You have 30 minutes for free time, right? And then you meet someone new, maybe from another institution or another country. So that kind of situation may facilitate small talk. And it's mentioned here, facilitate connections and interactions. And it can be social lubricant. So that kind of situation when you have free time and you meet someone new, it's where small talk may occur and that may bring a big advantage to you. Those encounters present opportunities for you to enhance your ability to engage in small talk and most importantly, to build connections that can lead to professional conversations. So although you started with a small talk is usually just like a casual talk. The topics involved there are not really heavy or serious, but we cannot belittle the function of small talk because it can lead to professional conversations too, and it can bring you professional connections and professional benefits too. Therefore, we need to use those opportunities to convey genuine interest, warmth, and care for others and their activities. There will be some examples on how to, show our, so that we care, show that we are into their activities later. And this kind of interaction will in turn encourage them to speak to you in future encounters. So then what are the steps that we need to do to succeed a small talk? Is there any certain strategy for that? Let's figure it out. Still about entering and maintaining conversations. Here are 2-step small talk strategies adapted from Freeman's 2004 handouts. The title is The Mechanics of Small Talk. And the strategies can be applied to help us start on taking the first important steps to engaging in small talk in academic settings. Those 2 steps are warm up, greeting, and responses. And number 2, topics to keep the conversation going. So first, we enter it, and number 2, we keep the conversation going or maintain the conversation. Well, I leave the boxes blank. I intentionally didn't write anything in the boxes. No, it's actually for you, your task. Please write down what kind of greeting and what kind of responses that you usually use or you can use to enter or to start a conversation or to start a small talk. Please write it down on the left box. And when you are finished, please move on to the right one to write down any topics, both related and not related to your academic background. The topics that can help you maintain the conversations. Please write it down on the right box. You may stop this video or pause this video for a while to give you a chance to complete this very short exercise. But whenever you're ready, let's continue the lesson with the next discussion. All right, now that you have had the list of greeting and responses, expressions that you can use for, starting a conversation in a small talk, please keep it, or you may, later compare it with what I write on this slide. So let's start with the first one is warm up, greeting and responses. So conversation is actually just like a sport. We need to warm up. We need something to break the ice, to warm up the situation. And in a small talk, we can do it by greeting and also preparing the responses when the other person or our speaking partner greet us back. And some useful greeting phrases are, I'll show you the examples of the greeting phrases, and please repeat after me. Please pay attention to the intonation and also the pronunciation too. And later you may apply it in the real situation of small talk. So here we are. How are you? Your turn. How have you been? It's nice to see you again. Good. So please use facial expressions and then body gesture so that your speaking partner know that you mean it, right? How have you been? It's nice to see you again. So show that it's really nice to see them again. It's just not like, just words coming out of our mouth. I haven't seen you for a while. How was your conference trip to Ottawa over reading break? So it's applicable if you already know the person and you know that the person was just back from a different conference trip, and you can use that information to greet them or to break the ice so that you can have a small talk with them. I see you are back from your trip. When did you get back? How was your holiday? Well, for this expression, it's not necessary that you already know the person. Maybe the conference that you are having is held right after summer break or spring break, and you can use this kind of questions or expressions to greet them, to greet someone that you want to have a small talk with. The next one are the responses. So when someone asks you with the expressions in the blue box, here are the phrases that you can use to respond. I'm well. How about you? I'm doing well, thanks. Yes, how have you been? Yes, I haven't seen you for ages. What's new? It's to keep yourself updated with the person, right? What's new? Great. Were you away too? So the person or your speaking partner asks you back about your trip or about your holiday. When did you get back? Yesterday. And how are things with you? Great. Did you have a nice holiday too? So when you decide to use certain greeting phrases, you also need to prepare the responses if your speaking partner asks you the same question, and show your enthusiasm and also show a thoughtful answer so that they want to keep the conversation going even though it's just start the greeting and responses stage or phase, right? Before we move to the next slide, I have a question for you. What other expressions do you or your speaking partners use? As you experiment with familiar or unfamiliar expressions used to initiate a conversation, listen carefully to how others respond to your greetings and add the responses to your list. So the list of phrases that I wrote on this slide is just the examples. There are so many other responses that we can use or so many other greeting phrases that you can use. So when you are really taking a part in a real academic communication setting, try to listen to your partner. Maybe they use phrases or responding phrases that you have never used or never heard, and you can adapt it and later use it in your next conversation with a new person. Step 2, topics to keep the conversation going. Even highly proficient learners of English are quick to share stories about their awkward silent moments when they do not know what to say after step 1. So it's okay if you think you're still intermediate learner, but you think it's awkward to maintaining a conversation, you're not alone. It is experienced by any learners from any English level. Do you sometimes not know what to do after you have entered the conversation? If the time and occasion permit you to engage in a longer conversation, then seize the opportunity to get to know your interlocutor better. So this is one of the keys. If you think you don't know what to say, what to ask, but you have long time, maybe the break time of the conference is long, then you can use the opportunity to to know your speaking partner better. It can be in terms of their professional work or academic background or many things like that. Your interaction will form the basis for future conversations. The social exchanges may make it easy to talk about other professional matters. So if you think you want to have a professional and serious conversation with someone that you meet in a academic forum like that, but the person is someone new to you, so you can use the strategies of small talk. So start the conversation with them with something light, something easy, something not that serious, and from that conversation you can build it up into conversation about professional matters. Try to think of common topics that you can use to keep the dialogue going. Topics such as responses to your greetings, the weather, courses, TA work or teaching assistant work, research work, current events in the news, a previous contact or the last conversation, or the location where you both are. So those topics are the examples that we can use for maintaining a conversation or keep the conversation going. And here are some examples to get you started. The next slides will be about the expressions or the statements that you can use to have the conversation going with someone that you just knew or someone that you want to talk about in a small talk. The first one, responses to your greetings. So here are the examples on how to respond to greetings. Although previously we have discussed several examples of it, but here are other examples. The first one, you can say, I'm exhausted or I'm tired. And then you can build up a conversation from there. Hectic, in response to, how's your morning so far? Maybe before you attend the conference, you had to run some errands and then you feel very hectic and then very tired like that. Why is that? What's a hectic morning like for you? So here are the additional responses that you can use to respond to greetings. Now I want you to add some of your own expressions. So when you have to respond to greetings, what kind of expressions that you want to use? Maybe you have ever used expressions or responses that are different or that are not listed on this slide. So please write it down here, or you can write it down in your notebook too. You may pause this video to give yourself time to complete the box. Next one, the next topic is about weather. You can always use weather as a topic for your small talk, especially if you are talking to someone from different country whose weather is quite different from yours, or just another country that has different type of weather like that. So you can use these expressions. Please repeat after me. What a gorgeous day. It's a bit chilly today, isn't it? The weather has really turned out nice today. Looks like we will have the same weather during the next few days. Your turn. So those four are about the expressions talking about weather. You absolutely can add more in here. Now it's your turn to add some of your own expressions about weather. So if you want to use weather as the topic of your small talk conversation, so what kind of statement of expressions that you want to use? Whenever you're finished, Let's continue to the next slide. You can also use coursework for your topic of conversation. And here are some expressions that you can use for that. What course are you taking this term? Although you and your speaking partner are from the same department, let's say you are from English literature and your speaking partner is too, but two different institutions or universities may have different courses listed in their syllabus, in their curriculum. So you can use the situations to have a topic about coursework with your speaking partner. You can ask about what course are they taking and why are they taking it and what is so good about it. Maybe you two share the same course but in different semesters or in different academic year, and you can ask them about what they have learned so far in that course and what you can expect from that course, because you will need to take it next semester, right? So it's like a sharing experience, academic experience even. Next, how many courses are you taking this term? Some people are taking many courses while some others are not. So you can use this for your conversation topic too. Or you can ask whether or not someone is taking a certain course. Are you taking blah, blah, blah this term? You can say course number, or, well, actually for me, it's way simpler to say the name of the course. Have you finished the reading for Wednesday's class? What did you think of the piece? Well, if you two are from the same department or even the same batch and you two have the same assignment, then you can use that for your conversation topic, right? The conversation can even get longer when you ask the second question. What did you think of the piece? And let your speaking partner to talk and to express their opinions or ideas, and then you can follow up with the next questions. How's your class presentation coming along? What did you decide to focus on? Previously, we talked about reading assignment and now about presentation assignment. And the same thing, you can use your assignment as one of your conversation topic, right? So those are the 5 expressions that we can use in a small talk, and they are about coursework. Now it's your time to add your own expressions. Maybe you have used this topic in a small talk in the past when you want to talk with someone in academic communication or academic setting. So what are the expressions that we can use that are different from the ones listed here? Let's write it down in the right box. Whenever you're ready, whenever you're finished, let's continue with the next section, with the next topic of conversation that we can use in small talk. Now about TA work or teaching assistant work. Some students, or not only students actually, but also some people work as a teaching assistant in their institution or university. And if you know that they are one, then you can use that. You can use that topic for your small talk. And here are the expressions or the statements that you can use to talk about this topic. The first one, what course are you TAing this term? Well, TA is the shortened version from teaching assistant. Well, it's a quite common expression, but if your speaking partner not familiar with TA, so you can explain it that TA stands for teaching assistant. Are you TAing multiple courses this term? All right. So there are 2 expressions that you can use in a TA work conversation. You may also add some other expressions related to this one. For example, what do you think about TAing this term? What is the difficulty? What is the benefit? What can I expect to learn if I TA this course this term or next term? There are so many questions that you can use, so many statement expressions that you can use to talk about TA work with your speaking partner. Now write it down in the right box. Next one is about research. Well, this topic will be very relatable if you are in a academic conference or seminar like that, because that's about research. Like, now let's see the examples of expressions that we can use. The first one, how is your research going? If you know that someone is conducting a research, or you can start off by asking, are you conducting a research right now? And then you ask this question, how is it going? How's your thesis or proposal coming along? If you know that the person is currently doing their research or their proposal. Have you finished the data collection for your research? What area of research are you working on? Well, although you and your speaking partner are from the same field or the same background, let's say it was literature, you two may have different research interests. You may be interested in English literature, while your speaking partner is more into English linguistics. So you can use this difference as a topic, right? So there are so many things that we can use for, a conversation topic. And then, are you applying for a research grant this year? So having a conversation about research is not only about the topic or the procedure or how's the progress. It can also be about the research grant, especially if you are, you're a very competitive person, like you're always looking forward to receiving a research grant like that, then you know that the person is too, then you can use that for the conversation topic. Next one, I hear that you collaborated with Dr. Kelly on her research project. What was the research project about? You can also ask about research collaboration too. And the last one, I hear that you used to work at the University of Toronto. How did you like working there? So it's going to be about the topic, about the procedure, about the collaboration, about the research grant, or even the setting of the research, right? So many things to talk about, even from this certain topic, which is research, right? Now please find out other expressions that we can use to talk about research in our small talk. Please list down any other questions that is not yet listed in the in the green box, and write it down in the yellow box. Whenever you're ready, you can move to the next slide. If not, you can stay on this slide, pause this video to give yourself time to complete the box. Moving on, about news. If you are into news, watching TV, about news, of course, and then reading newspapers, and you can know that there are a lot of things going on worldwide. It's not only about what's happening in your country, but also another country. And this can be a very interesting topic to have a small talk with someone. And here are some examples of expressions that we can use to talk about news. First one, have you been following the news in Haiti or any other city or country or region in the world that is, that is hot right now? Next one, have you heard the news about what's happening in the United States of America? And many other expressions, actually. And now I challenge you to write down expressions that we can use to talk about news. Can be from news about any country, actually, any country, any city, or even your own country. If something happening in your country becomes a concern of the world, then you can use that to talk about in your small talk. If you're finished, let's move on to the next topic of small talk. Next one, previous contact. The examples of expressions are, there was a great gathering we had at last, Lisa. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Michael. We met at, for example, you and your speaking partner are, academic conference enthusiasts. So you join this conference, and then that conference, and after that another conference. And if you are really into academic conferences, you may encounter the same people over and over again, right? And you can use that as an idea to talk about or to have a conversation with in a small talk, especially if one conference you happen to talk with someone, and then in the following conference you meet that person again. So don't miss that chance. You can make most of it. The next one, how's Nicholas doing these days? I haven't seen him since our last gathering. Well, this expression is applicable if you two already knew each other and knew the same person, like this one, Nicholas. The last time I saw you, you were about to head off to a conference in New York. How was it? If I remember correctly, you're planning to defend your thesis this month. How does that feel? So the questions about previous contact is not only about the person or the time, but also any topics that you and your speaking partner have in the last time you two met. And the last one, did you manage to submit that manuscript last week as you hoped? Now it's time for you to add your own expressions. List down any expression that you can use to talk about previous contact in a small talk. Write it down in the yellow box on the right side of the slide. And whenever you're ready, you can move to another slide or continue this video. Otherwise, you need to stop or pause this video for a while to give yourself enough time to complete the box. Next one is location. Do you live around here? What brings you here today? Do you have a class in this building? I didn't know that you were attending this conference too. So, as the name suggests, it's talking about location in which you two are meeting, right? There are, of course, many other questions or expressions that you can use to talk about location. Now, please add your own expressions. It can be something that you have ever used or something that just pop up in your mind. The next one is personal. Well, this topic of conversation can be challenging. If you are too personal in asking question, it can be something offensive or something that makes your speaking partner uncomfortable. But if you can get it right, then you can have a very enjoyable conversation with your speaking partner. Here are some useful phrases for showing that you are aware of the potential intrusiveness of asking a question in interpersonal communication. So, of course, we can use this topic in our small talk, but we need to be very careful. The examples of expressions are as the following. I was wondering if I could ask you, could you please tell me about something? I would be interested in knowing blah, blah, blah. Insert the personal question. Could I ask you, insert the personal question? Would you mind telling me blah, blah, blah? May I ask you blah, blah, blah? You don't have to answer the question if you don't feel comfortable answering. So actually the expressions here are more about, um, still asking question, but you also are making sure that the questions that you are asking are not, making them uncomfortable. And please highlight that the last expressions is very important. Please, highlight or underline that if your speaking partner doesn't, feel comfortable in answering, that's completely okay to leave your questions unanswered. And we have to respect that. So now, do you have other ideas? The expressions, or maybe the real example of questions that ask about personal matters. Please write it down in the yellow box. And now for other topics. We have discussed 9 topics previously that we can use in a small talk. Now, how about other topics? First, last week I saw the documentary, The Lost Tomb of Jesus. Have you seen it? Or if you happen to know a movie played in the cinema and the movie's, is what everyone talks about, then we can use that to start a conversation and to make it the conversation with someone new, right? Maybe you and your speaking partner share the same interest, right? The next one. On Friday, I went with some friends to see Sherlock Holmes. Have you seen it? It's still about movie, right? Next one. There was a really good article about language and thought in the Globe and Mail last week that might be of interest to you. Now it's about written article. The previous 2 are about cinemas or movies. The last example. I saw your name on the list for the steering committee meeting scheduled for next week. How long have you been serving on the committee? Now it's about someone participation in a certain event, and you can use that too for a topic in a conversation. Now it's your turn to add some expressions. Maybe you have used that kind of expressions previously. Now please write it down in here. Or maybe you just found out a new idea about a topic that you can use in a small talk. Write it down too in the yellow box. Those are the 10 topics that we can use to maintain a conversation, right? I hope that you can add some expressions to each of the topics there. And I hope that you can also apply various topics in different conversations every time you have the chance to do that. Right, now we are in the next slide, and it's still about entering and maintaining conversation, but it's the step 3. So we have covered about how to enter, how to keep the conversation going, and finally, we need to know how to exit the conversation. Have you ever run into a person and not known how to exit the brief conversation because both of you might be on your way somewhere, or maybe you are the one that need to run somewhere or need to find a new room for the conference? Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a conversation, then realized that you must head somewhere and so need to end the conversation? If yes, do you find that situation uncomfortable? Then how do you exit the conversation politely? It is impossible to just leave the person, right? Leave our speaking partner and then go. No, it's impossible to do. If you are in a hurry or can't talk for too long, then it is important that you let your interlocutor know. It's also important to respect the hints that others provide. Maybe it's not you who want to end the conversation, but maybe your speaking partner. And we have to be aware that they are sending hints that they want to end the conversation, and we need to respect that. Here is an easy strategy to exit a conversation, along with sample phrases that will make exiting a conversation no longer a challenge. Step 1 of exiting a conversation. Say something positive about the person of the conversation. Leave a good impression by doing this. The expressions are, it was really nice talking to you about blah, blah, blah. Insert the topic that you just had. I'd love to continue this conversation, and then insert the topic that you just had, right? Now add your own expressions about how to say something positive about the person that you just had a conversation with. Remember, something positive. So when you end the conversation with them, they have a, good impression, good feeling about you. Step 2, indicate what you need to do or where you need to go. Examples. If you will excuse me, I need to find a room for the meeting, for example. I am heading to a class right now. I have to get to a meeting by 3 p.m., but forgive me for being in a rush, but I am really later for an appointment. Some colleagues are expecting me, so I can talk right now. I've got to get a seminar by 2 p.m. I have a class at 1 p.m., so please excuse me for rushing. So it's completely okay to indicate what we need to do or where we need to go so that we need to end the conversation. It's okay. And it's not, offending them. But make sure that before you do this step or say one of these expressions, make sure that you already left a good saying or a positive, something positive about the person or about the conversation, just like what step 1 recommended. Now it's time for you to add your own expressions. Do you have other ideas on how to indicate what you need to do or where you need to go? Whenever you're ready, let's see step 3 of exiting conversation. Add one final positive comment and leave. The examples of the expressions are, it's really nice to see you again. We should get together soon. We should get together to chat more about. We should meet for lunch soon. Let's stay in touch. I will be in touch. So for the final comment, before we really leave, before we really separate with our speaking partner, please leave one final positive saying or statement, right? And you can use this statement to, to indicate that you really look forward to meeting the person again or look forward to having another conversation with the person, right? Now, do you have other ideas on how to add one final positive comment before you really leave? Whenever you're finished with this question, let's move to the next slide. If you are not yet finished, please pause this video and complete the boxes. The next one is about application activities. So we have covered the mechanics of the languages, right? And then I provide you with some ideas on how to apply those expressions in the real situation. right? Please pay attention to the directions so that you know what to do and how to do it. Here is an activity to immediately apply what you have learned in this unit and to monitor your own success along the way. The name of the activity is Mini Experiment. You can use it for self-study or a take-home task. Even if you're an instructor or a lecturer, you can still use this activity for the applications of the material we have covered so far. Let me provide you with the situation. When I have asked how much time each day students spend speaking in English with people who are native or fluent speakers of English over my years of teaching, the average is no longer than 20 minutes. Imagine that you can spend no longer than 20 minutes a day working on your doctoral degree or on any subject or skill that you feel passionately about mastering. How long would it take to achieve some success? Set a mini goal of striking up one conversation every day for a week with at least 3 people whom you know or don't know, using the expressions and strategies that you have learned in this unit. This will enhance your comfort level and also promote your fluency and automaticity in engaging in interpersonal communication in academic settings. Remember that you don't need to feel discouraged if you happen to meet someone who doesn't seem to be interested in carrying on a conversation for whatever reason. Just keep trying, keep finding someone new to talk to. Don't take it personally. Use the exit lines and simply move on and keep practicing. If the person you chose don't respond well or not into a conversation at that time, that's okay. Just move on, find someone new, and start a conversation again. But don't forget that you have expressions to exit the conversation politely. Try jotting down some of your thoughts and experiences from this experiment for personal reflection. If you are carrying out this activity as an outside of class task, be prepared to share your experience with your class in the following lesson. Or if you choose to do this, this lecture together with your friend, or to study this together with your friends, so you can try this application activity, and then you can share your experience and thoughts with them. Maybe they encounter something different from you did. And if you choose to do a personal reflection rather than sharing with your friend, here are some questions that can help you for internalize what you have done and what you have learned so far about this material. Number 1, have you made use of the conversation strategies and phrases introduced in this unit? Did you manage to speak to various types of people? So it's just not the number of the people that matters, but also various types of people. Maybe you can intentionally choose the one that is very friendly and someone who is reserved, or other types of people. What's one thing you will try in a similar communication situation? So maybe you have tried a certain strategy or a certain expression and you feel it didn't work. What do you think you need to change in the way you have a communication with someone? So answer those 3 things, reflect on those 3 things so that you know what you have done well and what you need to improve over the time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we are in section 5, and this is the last section for this lecture. It's about strategies for success. So after we cover the mechanics of the language and then the application activity, here are some strategies that you can use to succeed your interpersonal communication further. The first one is a strategy about a few pointers on making new acquaintances. The first one, the strategy that you can use. Introduce yourself appropriately according to the situation. According to situation. If it is a formal situation, avoid addressing your professors, supervisors, collaborators, or colleagues casually, even if you know them well personally. But if it is informal situation, convey approachability and keep it simple. Responses may also vary according to the situations. For example, nice to meet you, pleased to meet you, pleasure to meet you. So for different situation, you need to do different thing, different expression, and different way of, conveying message. Strategies number 2. If a friend comes along and stops to talk, informally introduce him or her to the person you are talking to. So do not, leave them alienated like that. It is helpful to provide some information about each of them. For example, the relationship you have with the person you are talking to, or with the person that just come along, and also some other information that you think is important. So the importance of this is that you can, help the person you are talking to and the person that just come along to know at least something about each of them, so that each will know what your relationship is to the other person is. For example, friend or colleague or instructor or other relationship, and to help them have some information, for example, area of expertise that can be used to begin a conversation. Next. Here are simple strategies for keeping the conversation ball rolling as you become familiar with the various commonly used expressions to enter and maintain a conversation, as you develop spontaneity in your follow-up lines in response to the conversation at hand. So it's not only about entering a conversation and choosing a topic, but it's also about how you can, provide a follow-up line so that the conversation can keep going. Number 1, start a new round. How to do that? Running out of things to say about the topic at hand? Well, introduce a new topic then. For example, family, friends, or any of the topics listed in the previous section. Through opening lines such as, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? Did you hear about the news or the war happening in this country? Did I tell you about blah, blah, blah? Oh, I wanted to ask you about blah, blah, blah. Next one is expand. Try lengthening the conversation by expanding on the topic. For example, add a few different comments regarding what was just talked about. For example, by adding facts or information. Examples are your personal experiences and opinions. So when you introduce a new topic, try to expand it. You may use a different angles on how to talk about that topic like that. The examples are, what you're saying reminds me of my own experience with, right? So it's try to, make the conversation about the topic longer to stay on that. Many students find that the easiest approach is to relate the conversation to their personal experiences. For example, what you are saying reminds me of my own experience with, like that, right? Linking the conversation to your personal knowledge and experience will help you be more confident, especially in the initial stage of becoming comfortable in sharing thoughts with others and being part of the conversation. Next one, revisit. Start, expand, revisit. Revisit the information that came up earlier during the conversation but was not elaborated. So during the conversation, there must be a certain topics that are not yet elaborated. So you can keep that in mind. And when you are running out of things to talk about with a person, you can revisit that topic and elaborate it again. You will need to exercise active listening skills during a conversation so that you know what informational bits you can toss back into the conversation with expressions such as, this is the example. You mentioned earlier that you blah, blah, blah. Could you tell me more about that? So revisit. Next one, number 4, ask, and ask. Questions are used to carry on a conversation. But can we just use any question? Well, a simple question can keep the conversational ball rolling and can also indicate your interest in continuing it. When you keep asking the questions, your speaking partner will feel that you are really interested in the topic or interested in them. So the conversation can keep going. Being comfortable asking questions can help you establish and maintain relationships in social interaction. But this is the note. We cannot just use any questions, but make sure that we use open-ended questions or questions like what, how, why, for example, because this kind of questions trigger, longer answers, longer responses, so the conversation can get longer or get maintained. And please avoid questions whose answer is just yes or no. It will, stop the conversation right away because the answer is just very simple, just yes or no, right? Next one is about practice active listening skills. So in the previous one, let me show you again. You will need to exercise active listening skill in revisit, right? And how to do it. Here are the tips. The importance of practicing active listening skills was noted as a key strategy for maintaining a conversation. Here are 6 ways to practice active listening skills. Number 1 is about our smile and eye contact. Smile and maintain good eye contact with the person who is talking. So we cannot just look at the ceiling or other objects. And don't forget to smile. Learn that there are cultural differences in maintaining eye contact. Some people from some countries find it offensive to have intensive eye contact when they are talking to someone. So we need to make sure that we know the difference about using eye contact with people from different countries. Be aware of how you maintain eye contact with others and observe how others maintain eye contact with you during conversation. So say that you don't know if your speaking partner is from a country that is not used to have eye contact during a conversation. So you need to know the hints and please adapt accordingly. Number 2, focus on the speaker. Don't spend time thinking about what and how you are going to respond to the person. So focus on what they are talking about, not what are the things that I'm going to talk about next. Focusing too much on what you are going to say may hinder your comprehension of the message that the speaker is trying to convey or of the information bits that you can use to maintain the conversation. So because you're too focusing on the things that you need to, use for your response next, you may miss the information bits that can help you to maintain the conversation. The next one, ask questions or paraphrase. Ask questions or paraphrase what you have heard. So provide follow-up questions or paraphrase it further. Active listening includes indicating to your interlocutor that you understood his or her message or feelings. Use response phrases such as the following when you paraphrase or ask questions about what you have just heard. Take a look. That sounds interesting. That sounds exciting. That sounds challenging. That sounds intriguing. What happened? Right? You show your feelings that you care, that you are interested in what is being talked about. I see, or I know what you mean about blah, blah, blah. Let me see if I understood everything. You were saying that. So this phrase is for paraphrasing what your speaking partners just said. Could you provide an example of what you mean by that? Okay. It's important to restate specifics that clarify what others are trying to say to you, to check your understanding of their message, and to let them know that you really heard them. Next one, make listening sounds to indicate that you are really listening to them. For example, uh-huh, yes, I see. Oh, really? And many other listening sounds. Providing listening sounds or vocal cues is important during interpersonal communication, whether in person or over the telephone. These vocal cues, formally called back channeling, are ways of indicating to a speaker that you are following and understanding what he or she is saying. They are also used to signal to a speaker that you do not wish to talk, even though the speaker may be displaying verbal or nonverbal cues for yielding a turn. So if you're just into listening to them and do not want to provide a response, you can use this back channeling for listening sounds. Next one, jot things down. This is especially applicable when you are meeting with your course instructors or supervisors. It's not recommended to keep your head in a notebook. Instead, jot down quick notes. This not only indicates to your interlocutor that what she is saying is important, but will also help jog your memory about any important information in the conversation. And the last one is don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask the person to repeat something or to slow down. Let them know if they are speaking too fast. Because reluctance to ask for repetition can result in missing crucial information. So, countless times, students have shared stories about their reluctance to ask for repetitions because they feel embarrassed about not being able to immediately comprehend what they have heard or think that it will be disrespectful to ask the speaker to repeat the information. As a result, they may have nodded their heads and walk away, worrying that they might have missed crucial information that they were supposed to deal with after the conversation. Is this a familiar situation? This is not a rare occurrence, of course. Become familiar with various ways to ask for clarification will be very important for us. So if you think that you haven't understood the message clearly when you meet your professors or supervisors, feel free to ask or to clarify your understanding. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of our lecture 2 about communication, interpersonal communication. Right, we have covered the challenges and the hidden assumptions in interpersonal communication engagement, and then the mechanics of the language about entering, maintaining conversation, and exiting it. And the last one, after the application activity, we discuss about strategies for success in this kind of situation. Well, I hope that this material is helpful to you, and I hope that you can really apply what you have learned so far in the real situation or in the real academic communication. And the references for this lecture 2 are taken from this one. If you want to find more activities about the application for engaging in interpersonal communication, you can go to read a book entitled Academic Communication Skills, written by Huang L.S. in 2010. And here is the additional reference of lecture 2. I already provided it here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all for this lecture 2. Thank you so much for joining this lecture, and I'll see you in lecture 3 with different topic in English for academic communications. I'll see you.